Happy Holy Day, Moors, and welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, as always, we are pleased to present our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, as he presents the seriousness of comprehending jurisdiction. Let's welcome him.
Islam, Shalom, Assalamu alaikum, Miyam Varamekum. I want to discuss again, and we've done this over the last few decades with you all, the issue of jurisdiction / jurisdictions, and the importance of our people having and being presented with a comprehensive, reasonably comprehensive comprehension and dissertation on the subject matter of jurisdiction. And the fact of the matter is, the issue of jurisdiction is not discussed enough among our people, in so much as the fact that everything that is done in social structure, in governmental principles, in running government, in dealing with rights and liberties, in dealing with rights of property or the lack thereof, in dealing with a challenge or question or any controversy concerning rights, properties, estates, inheritances, both corporal and incorporeal, territories on the aggregate land, rulership on the aggregate land, the exercise of powers, and the matters concerning authority operating on the land or in a political jurisdiction limited on the land, and the knowledge of the borders lines, both aggregate and also abstract in relationship to organized government and, of course, organized society. And also with the determinations in relationship to economic interchanges, trust systems which operate in government and in everyday affairs of economics, in relationship to estates, in relationship to inheritances, etc. And as you all know, these things or matters concern us every day in our everyday affairs. However, when you speak to our people in many of these areas of concern, you'll find that many of us are inadequate in relationship to comprehending jurisdictions and the importance of it, and also with many not recognizing that it affects every phase of your life in interchanging with other members of the human kindred and families, etc. So we're going to go over a few things concerning jurisdiction. And those of you, as usual, take pen and paper and write down some of these things, because these are points of reference that you're going to use in for tonight and also in the future. And also whenever you're addressing, as an example, any contract, constitution, treaties, recognition of the connections between those instruments and or the lack thereof, the identification of parties in controversy in relationship to estates, land grants, land ownership or land claims, or jurisdiction or power over land, taxation, the lack of power to tax, the alleged or claimed authority to tax, etc., the ones or the persons who use political jurisdictions and or venues to issue or make claim or command a tax. All of these things concern jurisdiction. And you know from probably your own experiences, and we've experienced it over the years, even when people begin to do a little study and research, you'll see that there's a continuous weakness in the area of comprehending jurisdiction. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the questions politically and economically that affect our people, and that will come up in different conversations relative to jurisprudence, which is the science that treats of positive law in society, period, coming from the ancient Canaanite Moabites, i.e., and promoted around the world in organized structure by the Moors, etc., which is and are the Asiatic Africans collectively, etc. Although you have specific Moorish jurisdictions, etc., and they will have territorial nomenclatures, etc., that will distinguish the territorial provinces and kingdoms, etc., and having a concept, a proper concept of those jurisdictions will remove a lot of confusion that exists among the people. And keep in mind that that lack of knowledge and lack of information in relationship to political jurisdictions, social structure jurisdictions, estate jurisdictions, etc., rights and powers and exercises of jurisdiction, etc., has been lacking in our community. So I want you to write some of these things down, which I'm going to read to you, and you'll do, say, some research on your own in the future. At the same time, have some references to what we will discuss in general tonight, and then not be necessarily what you call wanting in your comprehension of what jurisdiction is about and the seriousness and importance of it, because it operates every day in all your affairs. Jurisdiction in general. So jurisdiction in general. Now this is ancient and modern jurisprudence, Henry Campbell Black's 4th edition, Law Dictionary, etc., deluxe edition. Jurisdiction. Now the word jurisdiction is a term of large and comprehensive import and embraces every kind of judicial action. Keep that in mind. I'm going to repeat because you really got to get this down and get this clear in your mind. Jurisdiction is a word and a term of large and comprehensive import and embraces every kind of judicial action. Are we clear? Now, jurisdiction is the authority by which courts and judicial officers take cognizance of and decide cases, meaning that's the authority that is used or which is delegated to them under standing or established law that is made is presented as in a term of law, their license to act in a limited capacity in relationship to making judgments and decisions in harmony with the construct of treaty, constitution, or trust assigned to them with its limited parameters that would be within a construct, or what you would call a document that may be called a delegation of authority order. It could be called a power of attorney. In principle, this is what is meant when someone claims or is exercising power over another being, designated as a natural person, because person also means corporation. So when you just say person, they may be, you need to understand jurisdiction, because then there's the jurisdiction of the living, and then there's the jurisdiction of the dead. And when you have corrupt operators or persons who are claiming jurisdiction, and they are aware of the fact that many of the masses do not understand jurisdiction, what they have often done and what they've been doing, and which is also one of the motivations of me bringing this subject matter up, is that they will mix deliberately or transfer the corpse or the dead corporate entities that they may construct under legislative cause or legislative action that may have no relationship whatsoever by obligation or authority to the targeted beings or persons, natural persons, and designate them as dead, i.e. civil iter mortuus, under the guise of a corporate structure, which has been and is currently the practice at North America. And it has been used constantly and consistently by members of the Circle Church and the Chancery, which you know as the Bar Association or the British Accredited Registry. These people are known as lawyers and attorneys, etc., under the Bar Association, which is a foreign jurisdiction. That you must know. Anyone who claims to be a lawyer or an attorney operating on the land at North America under the jurisdiction of Morocco or the jurisdiction of the occupational corporate operation designated as United States Service Trading Company, etc., that jurisdictional power would be designated by virtue of a contract via treaty or constitution. The distinction must always be known by the people, because one of the problems that we've been having, particularly with our people who are the Aboriginal people of the land, is that false jurisdictions were created under corporate constructs and imposed upon the people who are the living, and then they have been declared artificially as dead politically, not physically dead, but politically dead. And then the operators under de facto venues and de facto anti-constitution and anti-treaty corporate entities have been used to steal people's estates, etc. And that venue of operations, which is well entrenched at North America, has been disguised under the Carlos Linnaeus term racism, which was generally imposed during the 1735 era on up, and has no origin in the ancient world as demonstrated at North America in modern contemporary times. And what you recognize is many of the people are not aware of that. And so as soon as, and as commonly projected among the people, like a psychic attack, and it absolutely is, the corporate ens legis operations of occupational people who are in fact not Americans, but who have been falsely claiming to be Americans, but who are really members of the Roman Curia under the Spanish Inquisition against the Moors, have been claiming to be Americans and have been claiming authority under treaty and constitution and exercising that said authority when no such authority is vested in them or exists with them. On top of the fact that those persons who are claiming to be Americans, and particularly white Americans, are in fact not Americans, and in fact have no green card, while they under a color of law have practiced imposing green card processes on Aboriginal people of the American continent, North, Central, and South, and the adjoining islands, and for the most part have not gone challenged, because have gone unchallenged and not sued in international courts or venues, etc., nor injured, nor attacked, but submitted to under false pretexts by people from the islands who are Americans, people from South America who are Americans, people from Mexico who are Americans, and people of the North who are Americans, who have been calling themselves brand names created under Enslegas operations of the dead, called corporate entities, etc., which many people commonly refer to as 14th Amendment persons. And I know you've heard those terms, but people need to know what that actually is. And what the alien invaders have been doing under the guise of federal government, under the guise of state government, and keep this in mind, write that word down, that it's very important, under the guise of municipal government, under the guise of being legitimate creatures of constitution and treaty, etc., have actually set up a criminal enterprise that has been operating at North America, particularly under the de facto jurisdiction of the United States Corporation Service Company, acting as legitimate when in fact it is a criminal enterprise and is not lawful whatsoever. It's not opinion, that's fact. And the activities, the corruption and the activities that have been practiced, and particularly conversions of estates and probate jurisdictions which they have created, as an example, probate jurisdictions concerning rights and liberties that have been converted from the living to the dead, are demonstrated in what you call Department of Motor Vehicles, with registration of vehicles, registration of cars, trucks, etc. And you know, and I know that the average person is not aware that those activities are actually violations of treaty and violation of constitutional law. But because people have been groomed under de facto governmental operations for so many generations, their concepts are that these instruments that they have been using under the jurisdictional powers of the United States Service Corporation owners is a legitimate, lawful creature operations under the Constitution for the United States, derived from Muslim law under the treaties, etc., which supersede that Constitution, but yet that Constitution obligates those who claim to be government officials to the treaties, etc., via Article 3 of that Constitution and Article 6 of that Constitution for the United States. And so the issues of jurisdiction, the issue of challenging jurisdiction, the issue of knowing or recognizing when jurisdictional barriers or lines, abstract and aggregate, are crossed or violated, needs to be known among our people. And what you'll see by training, you'll hear almost every day in different political, social, economic, and intersocial venues, people constantly using this phrase, racism, prejudice, not knowing that they're actually given a cover word to cover up the organized criminal enterprise known as the U.S. government corporation, that they have been trained is a country when it is in fact a private service corporation registered in Austria, and also with a branch registered in France, etc., and also which has been duplicated about 4 times in actuality, with what is called corporate succession passed to other corporate entities and owners generationally. And outside of that are in fact, not even truthfully related. But yet, because of the word United States being used, the people are not aware who know better. People who know better usually are not talking, and people who don't know better think that they're discussing a company when they're not aware of the fact that they're discussing the operations of a human trafficking trading company, corporation operations that has been going on for a couple of 100 years at North America, and in particularly with the last two of the corporate constructs in violation of treaties and constitution that have been called the United States. One, which you're familiar with, that was established in 1913 under the Ashkenazi operator known as Woodrow Wilson, and with some Roman Curia members of the Circle Church and the Chancery, which you've been told were lawyers, etc., and members of the board of directors for the Secret Treaty of Verona, under the authority of the Queen of England, etc., and the Circle Church, etc. And those persons you have been calling, unfortunately, for lack of knowledge of jurisdiction, you've been falsely misled and misrepresented in relationship to them, and you have been calling them senators and congressmen and congresswomen, etc., and you've been calling them governors of the states, and you've been calling them representatives of the legislature for the United States Corporation and Company, when in actuality, and keep in mind, these people know this, that they are de facto. And de facto in law, in layman's terms, you can call it impersonators, fraudulent impersonators, substitutes, deceivers, maskers, but in general, you would call them corporate artificial persons who are actually exercising de facto authority under violation of treaties and then under violation of constitutions, and pretending to have authority that they do not have, but nevertheless using that said authority to defraud the people, to rob people of their estates, to put their estates in what is known as jurisdictional probate. So write that phrase down. That's what you need to understand, that has been used for generations to gentrify certain targeted neighborhoods. And you know, and I know, the issue of gentrification has always been a problem in our communities, and our people have been trained under the black codes to keep talking about racism when that's not what's going on. What you have is jurisdictional probate under a color of law, under a de facto venue of criminal human traffickers who have been getting away with this for decades and decades and decades. And it is a known fact, but people have not challenged them. So we're going over jurisdiction so that you can have some comprehension of what your conversations should be when you're interchanging with these foreigners and aliens who have been getting away with pretending to be Americans for quite some time. In layman's terms, it would be safe for you to just make the distinction, the jurisdictional distinction, by putting the parties under these categories. First category of proper person and the true people of the land, i.e. Americans, that would be people of Canaanite, Moabite descent, sometimes referred to as Phoenicians, etc., Moors in general, etc., and in distinctive, limited format, descendants of Druids, which would be Sinde, which is falsely called Indian. So that must be understood so that you'll know who the real Americans are, distinguished from the hybrid, heterogeneous hybrid Albions who, under color of law and invasion, have falsely interjected into history, and particularly since the 1800s, where they really started reinforcing it, claiming to be Americans, which has become commonly claimed and commonly assumed and commonly presented in law text legal texts, history books, etc., but is absolutely and violently false. And in that area has come much of the economic distress that not only the people of America are feeling, but people around the world, and is at the root of most of your wars that have been taking place. And these are coming under jurisdictional probate. And this is false claims, and most of them are rooted in what you know as the unum sanctum operations, where the popes of Rome, which is the representative head, etc., for the hybrid albions, claiming to own the souls, the property, and the lives of every man, woman, and child on the earth, particularly first target being Canaanite, Moabite people of Asiatic African descent, commonly known in the history books before the Black Codes, commonly known as Moors collectively. Now, that's the fact. And this is, again, when why people who know this information and know the real history operating in the political jurisdictions, particularly at North America, get quite uncomfortable and upset when you bring these facts to the fore, because what it will begin to do is generate thought and generate research among the people, and they will begin to start changing their language, because what has been happening with our people, out of frustration and for lack of remedy and a lack of justice, etc., which is commonly argued, you'll see in the different political social venues, the fact of the matter is that the people are declared incompetent because actually they're arguing what is called a guided false argument, arguing racism and prejudice, when actually they should be arguing against false jurisdictions and jurisdictional probate, and also violations of territorial jurisdictions, as well as violations of in personam jurisdiction, violations of subject matter jurisdiction, and again, particularly of import to you is violation of territorial jurisdiction. And keep in mind, all of these issues of jurisdiction come into play every day. And I'm assuming, but dealing with people from around the country for years, I can safely say most of them really still don't get it. And it doesn't mean that persons who have assignments of different organizations are not aware of this, because they absolutely are. Because of the corruption of the politics and the inbred corruption of organized corporate entities disguised for so many generations as government, they have been assumed to be legitimate. And so even when people are trying to bring remedy and justice to themselves via the alleged creature venues of constitutions and treaties known as courts, consular courts, courts of special sessions, etc., which are commonly operative around the world, most of the people, particularly here, were not even aware that the venues that they have been calling courts were actually human trafficking venues and are not lawful courts whatsoever, and actually never were, particularly since around 1789, about that time. And about thereafter, almost all the courts that have been operating at North America has been under the control of the Circle Church and Chancery of the Bar Association, referred to in the Bible as the those Sadducees guys, and those who are stealing the widow's pennies, those who know the truth and hinder the little ones from coming into the knowledge of truth, etc. That is specifically talking in modern terms. You would call them members of the Roman Curia. That's a fact. Pardon me. And it's important for you to understand jurisdiction so you can make discernment for yourselves, not because we're having this discussion, but because the people need to have a fundamental knowledge of these things themselves